Unit 3 in the AP Government Curriculum deals with linkage institutions. Linkage institutions are the facets of our society that help connect citizens to their government. The first linkage institution that we're going to explore in Unit 3 is interest groups. So today's discussion is going to look a little bit at the birth of interest groups, the rise of interest groups, and who and what they are. So we're going to start with a definition of an interest group. And an interest group is a group or an association with a common set of beliefs, common core values, things that they see eye to eye on. Now, what really separates an interest group from other groups is their goal. And the goal of an interest group is to influence the government and change public policy. The example I could give to you that helps to illustrate this best is the National Rifle Association. The NRA shares a common belief system in the fundamental sanctity of the Second Amendment and gun ownership, and their goal is to preserve gun rights by having legislation passed for them that protects those rights. When they see that legislation is infringing upon their rights to bear arms, then they are seeking to change that policy. Now, this whole dilemma of interest groups impacting our government, it's been around since the founding. Madison foresaw it, and he knew that there was a dilemma. He wanted to balance liberty versus order. He wanted to allow people the liberty to form groups and express their views, but you had to recognize that that action could lead to the destruction of our hope for an orderly society. So Madison foresaw this, and what he said is that the factions that we have in our country are natural. They are going to occur. So the best thing to do is to control their effects. One way that you control the effects of interest groups and factions is through pluralism. Pluralism in our system refers to the fact that we have multiple layers of power in our system, whether it's state, local, or federal power, or the federal power even being divided among 3 branches. There are multiple points of access for people to have their voices heard. And the fact is, because there are so many different interest groups and so many different points of power, no one group can dominate all the facets of our government. That's how pluralism kind of helps to alleviate the pressures of interest groups on our liberty versus order dilemma. Now, despite some of the factors that have checked the growth of the interest groups to begin with, there are growth points and reasons why the interest groups have grown in our society. First is economics. Interest groups exist in some capacity to protect the financial benefits and financial situation of their members. If you look at labor unions, they were formed to protect workers' rights and to get better salaries and working conditions for their members. Government policies. When the government creates a new agency, it's an entry point for interest groups. And what you see is that groups seek to have a stake in these new agencies. They respond to the factors. When the government creates a military and new divisions of the military, those members of the military become veterans at some point, and those veterans need services and benefits, and an interest group will rise up to provide the lobbying for those benefits. We've also seen that political parties in our system have been unable to get things done in recent decades, and we've seen a real decline in the function and capacity of political parties. Interest groups at the same time have risen up to take on some of those roles. And finally, the last point for today is that there's been a conservative reaction to liberal government that yielded many interest groups. You want to think about the fact that social issues like abortion, when Roe v. Wade was decided, you saw a tremendous growth in the number of right to life organizations and pro-life organizations in response to that government decision. That's on the social side. On an economic side, the government in the 70s and 80s was very much into regulation and telling business what they could and could not do. So we saw a tremendous growth in corporate lobbying after the 1980s. So these are some of the factors that lead to the reasons for economic growth, and as we move on in this unit, we'll look at some of the ways that interest groups work and the tactics that they use and how they get things done in Washington.